everyone, my name is Jessica. If you're new to my channel is about addiction and mental health. So today I want to talk a little bit about recovery and relapse prevention. So recovery is something I really like to talk about just because it's my own, that's kind of my specialty is addiction. I touch base on mental health issues also, but recovery is really kind of my specialty, so that's what I focus on. So today I want to talk about acute and post-acute withdrawal symptoms. So acute withdrawal symptoms is the normal symptoms that everyone's pretty familiar with. Those are the physical symptoms of when you stop using drugs or alcohol. And then the psychological is the post-acute withdrawal symptoms. So those are the psychological part of withdrawal, which, so the first part of withdrawal is the physical withdrawal. So that's the that's the acute withdrawal, and that's the physical symptoms. So that lasts anywhere between a couple days to a couple weeks, depending on the person and what they used, whether it was drugs or alcohol or a mixture of different drugs, and everyone's different. So certain withdrawal is different for everybody. But the second part is psychological. So according to research, that takes about 2 years for the post-acute withdrawal symptoms to completely alleviate. So it's a long journey, but it's it's worth it. So I really like talking about this topic because when I was in recovery, early recovery, I would keep lapsing, and I didn't understand why. It was, sometimes the first time was like 9 months after I had stopped using alcohol. So I didn't understand why I had lapsed, and I thought life was going to be like that forever, but it's because I was still going through post-acute withdrawal, and I just wasn't aware of it. So I want to talk about this because I think it's so important to recovery. So I want to talk a little bit about what is withdrawal and why it happens, and then I'm going to go into why some of the danger symptoms of it, and then kind of what can help you, what can kind of help you in post-acute withdrawal, how to keep you sober while you're going through these symptoms. So withdrawal happens when the brain is no longer being altered by drugs and alcohol. So drugs and alcohol share similar chemical structures of the brain's natural neurotransmitters, or what we call is basically tiny messages. And it depends on what drug or alcohol you're using. They each kind of react differently or do certain things to the brain. But they all work on dopamine, which is the brain's natural reward system. So that's how addiction happens. So the more the substance is used, the more the brain alters its structure to create a homeostasis. So this is neuroplasticity. This was kind of the staple of what considered addiction, instead of just a substance abuse disorder. Now they categorize addiction through the DSM, which is called a substance use disorder, and they do it off of the severity of it, which is mild, moderate, or severe. So once the homeostasis is maintained, you need more of that drug or substance to achieve the same effect, and that's your tolerance. So when a person abruptly stops using drugs or alcohol, that brain's homeostasis is disrupted, and the entire functioning of the brain kind of goes out of whack, and that's what withdrawal is. So to kind of give you a little analogy, think of drugs and alcohol as a spring. So the spring kind of compresses on your brain. So when you stop using drugs or alcohol and that spring's released, your brain's kind of going crazy. So you're kind of getting a lot of those withdrawal symptoms. One of it is because you're being flooded with adrenaline, and all these chemicals are kind of, your whole brain's kind of out of whack and doesn't kind of know what's going on because it's been suppressed for so long. So I kind of have a little analogy for that. So just think about if you ever had a dog. If you leave your dog in a crate for too long, say you leave him in for, you end up working a 12-hour shift. He's used to getting out every 2 hours. So when he finally gets out, the dog's been confined for 12 hours. He is so excited. He is so full of energy. Now when you let him out, he is sprinting, and he might poop or pee in the house, something that's out of the norm for him. So, he's doing that just because he was been confined for so long, and he has all this adrenaline and all this like extra activity, and he's going. So you let him out and he's pooping and he's peeing and you're like, that's not normal, my dog normally doesn't do that. Well, it's because you kept them confined for too long. So this is kind of how the brain works, and this is kind of how what happens with withdrawal symptoms. So with some drugs, the physical withdrawal, it's different. So every drug produces their own kind of withdrawal symptoms. Alcohol, opiates, tranquilizers, those have pretty significant withdrawals. Some of the less ones, so I'm talking about in terms of physical withdrawal. Each drug has kind of their own thing. Alcohol, opiates, tranquilizers have some of the most dangerous and severe physical withdrawal symptoms. And then some of cocaine, marijuana, ecstasy, those are a little less severe. They're not usually as bad. But everyone's different. Everyone has their own genetic makeup, and everything's kind of just different. So what one person might have for withdrawal, they could have really a lot of physical symptoms, and then have not as many psychological symptoms. And some people may have very little physical symptoms and have a lot of psychological symptoms. So while we're talking about physical withdrawal, I just want to point out it is some of the dangers of withdrawing from tranquilizers, alcohol, any those type. So alcohol and tranquilizers are the two most dangerous physical withdrawal to withdraw from. So those are the two I just want to add before we move on. So if you suddenly stop using alcohol tranquilizers, it could lead to seizures, strokes, heart attacks. So a medical supervised detox is highly, highly advised, just because it can produce so many dangerous complications, like grand mal seizures, strokes, delirium tremors. Those could be life-threatening. So medical detox is advised for those. So if you're withdrawing from opiates like heroin, oxycodone, it's extremely uncomfortable, but it's not dangerous unless it's mixed with other drugs. Heroin withdrawal on its own it does not produce any seizures, heart attacks, strokes, or delirium tremens that we know from research. So that brings us into the second part. So post-acute withdrawal, again, is the psychological part. So that's the stuff those are the symptoms that are going to be more psychological. So mood swings, irritability, anxiety, depression, anger, problems sleeping. So the problem with these tricky little symptoms is that they can come in waves. So there could be days that go by and you feel amazing, you're doing great in recovery, and then you just get hit with, you're just angry, or you're just so annoyed by everything and everybody. And that's because, again, your brain is trying to just work its way and it's trying to restructure itself and live life without the use of substances. So just know that these symptoms will pass and they will lessen and lessen as time goes by, but there's really not much you can do except give it time. So you kind of just got to take things one day at a time, but there are some things you can do to help alleviate these symptoms, and that's what we're going to talk about. So I have a little survival guide to recovery. So you don't have to change your whole life in recovery, but there's certain behaviors, there's certain things that you're going to have to change if you want to be successful in recovery. So I have a few tips for you guys. I love my tips. So tip number one, take it one day at a time. It took a while to become addicted, and it's going to take just as long to undo the damage. So you got to take it easy on yourself and just don't rush recovery. Recovery is not a destination. It is a journey. It is something you're going to be on for the rest of your life. It sounds scary, but it's actually an amazing experience. And you're going to learn a lot about yourself, and you're going to one day you're going to be happy that you were in recovery, that you were once addicted and now in recovery, just because it teaches you so much about life, and so much about yourself, and you learn so many amazing skills and techniques and tools, and you just appreciate life so much more. Okay, so tip number 2, self-care. Self-care is so important. I don't think I can stress this enough. Self-care in recovery, you might feel like you're being selfish, but you're not. You have to be... you have to take care of yourself first. You have to make sure you're going to your doctor's appointments, making sure you're sleeping enough, making sure you're eating enough. Try to get exercise in if you can. That's awesome. You want to make sure that you have a support system, you're talking about your problems, you're releasing toxic people from your life. You want to, make sure you're relaxing, you're using coping skills. You want to make sure that, you're rewarding yourself the progress you have made. And, you want to make sure that you're doing things that are enjoyable, and healthy for you and in your recovery. That will help your recovery. You can't pour from an empty cup. So especially, if you like to help other people too, you just got to remember, if you're a parent too, this is huge, this is hard for me. You got to learn to, take time for yourself and do things to decompress and, de-stress yourself in your life. Okay, and that brings us to number 3. Create a recovery plan. So have some type of plan. You can do this with a counselor, you can do this, on your own, you can do it with a sponsor, however you want to do it, but just create a recovery plan that works for you. That could mean like I'll see a therapist, once or twice a week, or I'm going to hit up a meeting once or twice a week. I'm going to practice, my coping skills every day. I'm going to take time to practice self-care. So, write these things out and have a list of, what are you going to do for your recovery. All right, and that brings us to the next tip. Monitor your symptoms and know they too shall pass. So just know that these symptoms are going to hit you. Being aware of them is half the battle. Just know that they will pass. You just kind of got to ride out the waves, practice your coping skills. This is a great way to put those coping skills to use. All right, and that brings us to our next tip. Avoid high-risk situations. So these are people and places and things that will trigger you. So sometimes you can't avoid all these places, but in the beginning you're going to want to, just until you learn, how to handle them, and so you're not like just overly bombarded with everything. So just use your coping skills. If the bar was a trigger, take an alternate route. If it's a person that you hung out with, you can't hang out with them anymore. If there's alcohol bottles in your house, get rid of them. If there's anything that's going to trigger you, just clean house. All right. And then I have, and learn to relax. So when you use alcohol, when you use drugs or alcohol, we use it to escape, relax, reward ourselves. So now you have to find new ways to escape, relax, and reward yourself. So this could be, taking a weekend to go hiking, or to do something to get away from your normal life and to get you out of your own head. You definitely want to relax too. You want to find ways to relax, whether it's going to the beach or whatever relaxes you, reading a book. It's different for everybody. Going for a ride. Anything that you like that helps relax. Taking a hot shower, taking a bath, spending time with animals, anything that's going to help you relax. And just make sure that you're taking time to escape and you're relaxing, and then reward yourself. So you want to make sure that you're celebrating your milestones of recovery, that you're taking time to say, hey, I was sober today. You want to just make sure you're rewarding yourself. AA does a great job of this because every month you get the chip. But there's different ways you can do it. Just make sure you're rewarding yourself in some way. Maybe it's an ice cream at the end of the week. Maybe it's a new pair of shoes at the end of the month. Something like that. All right. And then you want to practice coping skills. Coping skills are huge. It is what's going to help us relax, manage stress, avoid negative thinking. Those are huge. So you want to practice your coping skills. You want to make sure you're applying those to all your stressful situations, especially if you're being triggered. All right, that brings us to the next one. Be honest. If you think you're going to relapse, or you feel like you're going to relapse, talk to somebody. If you feel depressed, or if you feel like you want to use, talk to someone. The more you talk about it, the better it is, and the more accountability you have too. So if you tell your old friends, like, I'm sober or I'm in sobriety, it's easier that way than them not knowing. So you just got to be honest. Be honest with yourself, be honest to people, and reach out to people. And this can include letting go of old people, places, and things. So again, this could be people you might not be able to hang out with anymore. This could be avoiding places. This could be cleaning house. Those are things you just have to do. Again, you don't have to change everything, but there's certain things that you're going to have to change. And that brings us to the next one. So have a support system. Whether it's AA, family, friends, spouses, therapy, any of those, anything that's going to help support you, somewhere you can call, or go to. I know they have hotlines that are like 24/7. They have like even chats of AA online, and there's meetings. There's like pretty much a meeting at every hour if you get a list, and you could see, which I definitely have to start putting that stuff more in my description of how to contact these places and how to find one that's in your area. But definitely hit up a meeting. Have family, have accountability, someone that you can reach out to that's going to help you when you feel triggered. And the last thing I want to leave you with is recovery is a second chance at life. Don't think of it as something that's boring or life-altering or a punishment. It is one of the most difficult things you'll ever go through, but it's also the most rewarding. And one day you're gonna be happy and that you went through this, because you're gonna learn so much about yourself, and you're gonna be a totally transformed person from this. You are really in a metamorphosis right now, and you are maybe this little caterpillar, going in your cocoon, but once you come out of the cocoon, you're gonna be a beautiful butterfly. I promise. And then I have a little statistical motivation for you. So they did a study at Harvard University, and during the study, they concluded that after 5 years abstinence, 5 years of abstinence, that is sustaining from all drugs and alcohol use, that after 5 years of staying abstinence, that relapse is very rare. So that's awesome. So just think about that. Don't think about I have to do 5 years. Just think about it as one day at a time. But just know that it does get easier. And every day that you're sober, you're less and less your chance of relapsing. So stay sober. Your brain's getting back down to normal, and eventually these symptoms that you're feeling will alleviate, and they'll return back to a state of before drugs and alcohol affected you. So just as physical withdrawals symptoms alleviate, so will psychological withdrawals, but it just takes a little bit of time. But you can do it, and I know you can, and I'm proud of you for being sober today, and I hope these tips helped. And if you have any of your own, let me know, put them in the comment, and I look forward to hearing back from you guys, and I hope this really helped you guys. It helped helped me so much in my recovery, and it kind of helped normalize things for me. And I hope this helps, and I look forward to seeing you guys back. Bye!